When my husband stood in front of his entire family and laughed, "You've lived off me for 2 years. Besides cooking, you're useless." Everyone laughed with him. Then his mother calmly slid divorce papers across the dining table and said, "Sign here. You're no longer good enough for my son." Not one person defended me. They all watched, waiting for tears, excuses, or a desperate fight to save my marriage. Instead, I quietly signed every page, thanked them for dinner, and walked out smiling. They celebrated their victory that night. They had no idea the next morning would change everything. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 30 years old. If someone had asked me that morning whether my marriage was happy, I probably would have smiled and said yes. Jason and I had been married for 6 years. 2 years earlier, I had stepped away from my corporate career after he convinced me it was the best decision for both of us. His promotions demanded longer hours, constant travel, and endless networking events. He told me one of us needed to keep life stable at home, and I believed supporting his dream meant supporting our future together. That evening was supposed to celebrate his biggest promotion yet. His parents reserved a private room at an upscale restaurant. His relatives filled every seat, raising glasses, congratulating Jason on becoming the company's youngest senior executive. Halfway through dinner, his mother stood and tapped her glass. "I'd like to make one more toast." Everyone fell silent. She smiled proudly at Jason before looking directly at me. "Our son has outgrown this marriage." Jason leaned back in his chair with a smug grin. "Let's be honest," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "For the last 2 years, Emily hasn't contributed anything. Besides cooking, she's completely useless." Laughter spread around the table. Then his mother reached into her designer handbag, placed a folder in front of me, and gently pushed it across the table. "These are divorce papers," she said. "Sign them. You're no longer good enough for my son." Every eye locked onto me. They expected tears. Instead, I uncapped the pen, signed every page without hesitation, stood up, thanked everyone for dinner, and walked away knowing tomorrow was going to be very interesting. I didn't cry on the drive home. I didn't scream, throw my wedding ring out the window, or call anyone looking for sympathy. Instead, I pulled into my garage, shut off the engine, and sat there for a full minute, letting the silence settle around me. The humiliation hurt. The betrayal hurt even more. But underneath all that pain was something unexpected. Clarity. Jason and his family believed they had just discarded a woman who depended on him for everything. They couldn't have been more wrong. I walked inside, changed out of my dress, tied my hair back, and opened the small fireproof safe hidden behind the books in my home office. Inside were documents I hadn't touched in nearly 2 years. Share certificates. Partnership agreements. Corporate formation papers. The original software licensing contracts. Every one of them carried my signature. 6 years earlier, Jason and I hadn't built his company. We had built our company. I wrote the software that attracted the first investors while Jason handled presentations and client relationships. We made a good team because our strengths complemented each other. As the business grew, Jason became the public face of the company. I never minded. I preferred solving problems behind the scenes while he enjoyed the spotlight. Then, 2 years ago, after his workload exploded, he convinced me to step away from daily operations. "You've done enough," he had told me. "Take care of our home. I'll take care of everything else." I trusted him completely. What Jason either forgot, or assumed no longer mattered, was that stepping away from management never changed ownership. I still legally owned the controlling shares. Nothing about that had ever been transferred. Nothing had ever been signed away. I opened my laptop and sent a single email to the company's outside legal counsel. Within minutes, my phone rang. "Emily," the attorney said. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you." "I need to exercise my shareholder rights," I replied calmly. There was a brief silence. "I understand," he finally said. "Has something happened?" "Yes." I looked down at the signed divorce papers still lying on my kitchen counter. "My husband has made a decision." Another call followed, to the chairman of the board. By the time I finally went to bed, every required document had been verified, and an emergency shareholders meeting had been scheduled. At exactly 8:30 the next morning, Jason walked into work wearing the biggest smile I'd seen in years. He had absolutely no idea what was waiting for him upstairs. At exactly 8:30 the next morning, Jason walked into Meridian Dynamics wearing the same confident smile he'd worn at his promotion party. He expected applause. Instead, conversations stopped. Employees who usually greeted him avoided eye contact. A few whispered quietly before turning back to their computer screens. Jason frowned. "What's going on?" No one answered. His executive assistant hurried toward him, looking unusually nervous. "Good morning, Mr. Carter." "Morning. Why does everyone look like someone died?" She hesitated. "The board has asked you to report to the executive conference room immediately." "The board?" Jason laughed. "Probably wants to congratulate me again." She forced a smile but said nothing. Jason rode the elevator to the top floor, completely unaware that his access card had already been restricted to that single meeting. When the conference room doors opened, his smile disappeared. The entire board of directors sat around the polished table. The company's outside legal counsel was present. So was the chairman. And sitting calmly near the window, dressed in a navy business suit instead of jeans and a sweater, was me. Jason blinked twice. "Emily," he said, laughing awkwardly. "What are you doing here?" I simply folded my hands. The chairman gestured toward an empty chair. "Please sit down, Mr. Carter." Jason looked around the room. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No," the chairman replied evenly. "This is an emergency shareholders meeting." Jason's confidence faded. "I don't understand." The company's attorney slid a thick folder across the table. "Mr. Carter, we've reviewed the corporate ownership records." Jason glanced at the first page before looking back at me. "What does this have to do with her?" The chairman answered before I could. "Everything." He paused long enough for the silence to become uncomfortable. "Mrs. Emily Carter is the company's original co-founder, creator of its core software platform, and the controlling majority shareholder." Jason stared at me as though he'd never seen me before. "That's impossible." "It isn't," I said quietly. "You simply stopped paying attention." The attorney continued. "Effective immediately, your recent executive promotion has been suspended pending an investigation into multiple governance violations, including undisclosed conflicts of interest and unauthorized executive decisions." Jason shot to his feet. "You can't do this." Before anyone responded, his company phone lost signal. His laptop automatically logged out. His executive security badge flashed red. The chairman looked at him calmly. "Mr. Carter, your executive authority ended 5 minutes ago." Jason stood frozen, gripping the edge of the conference table as though it might keep him from falling. He looked at me, then at the board, then back again. "Emily," he whispered, "why didn't you tell me?" I met his eyes without anger. "I did." He frowned. "Every ownership document was signed in front of both of us. Every shareholder report was emailed to both of us. Every annual meeting invitation included my name." The room remained silent. "You just stopped paying attention because you assumed my role at home meant I no longer mattered." No one spoke. The chairman closed the folder in front of him. "The investigation will continue, Mr. Carter. Until then, all executive authority remains suspended." Jason slowly lowered himself into his chair. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked genuinely unsure of himself. I stood, gathered my notebook, and quietly walked toward the door. "Emily, wait." His voice wasn't arrogant anymore. It sounded frightened. I'm sorry." I paused but didn't turn around immediately. "I'm sorry for what I said last night. I never should have humiliated you." I finally faced him. "What hurt wasn't one sentence, Jason." His shoulders dropped. "It was realizing you believed it." I walked out without another word. By lunchtime, news of the board meeting had spread throughout the company. Before sunset, my phone began ringing. Jason's mother, his sister, his uncle, even relatives who had laughed the night before. Every call sounded the same. "We didn't know. There must be some misunderstanding. Can we talk?" I answered only one call. It was his mother. Her voice had lost every trace of confidence. "Emily, I'm sorry. We judged you unfairly." I took a slow breath. "Yesterday you believed I had no value because I didn't collect a paycheck." She remained silent. Respect shouldn't disappear the moment someone's career changes. I know that now, she said quietly. I hope you do. I ended the call without raising my voice. Late that afternoon, Jason sent one final message. I would give anything to undo yesterday. I read it once before locking my phone. Some mistakes can be forgiven. Others permanently change how someone sees the person they once trusted. And once respect is broken in front of the people who mattered most, some doors close forever, even after someone finally knocks. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. There were no dramatic courtroom arguments, no shouting matches, and no last-minute attempts to stop it. The evidence spoke for itself, and both of us knew there was nothing left to fight over except paperwork. I kept my ownership in the company and accepted the board's request to return as executive chair. But I didn't take Jason's old position. Leadership had never been about titles to me. Instead, I hired an experienced CEO whose values matched the culture I wanted to rebuild. One based on respect, accountability, and teamwork instead of ego. A few months later, we launched a mentorship program for professionals who had paused their careers to support their families. Watching talented people regain confidence became far more rewarding than any corporate victory I'd ever experienced. As for Jason, I heard he accepted a management position at another company. Smaller office. Smaller salary. A chance to start over. I genuinely hoped he would use it wisely. Nearly a year after our divorce, we crossed paths at a charity leadership conference. He looked different. Not defeated. Just humbler. He walked over slowly. Emily. I smiled politely. Hello, Jason. He hesitated before speaking again. I've spent a long time thinking about everything. I waited. You weren't useless. His voice was quiet. You were the reason I had the life I took for granted. I just realized it too late. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I nodded. I hope you found the person you want to become. I'm trying, he replied. So am I. We wished each other well and walked in opposite directions. As I stepped outside into the warm afternoon sunlight, I realized something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Because real success isn't proving someone wrong. It's refusing to let someone else's opinion define your worth. The people who truly value you never need to be reminded of your importance. And those who don't, usually learn it when it's already too late.